Hello, everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of Here Comes the New Challenger with my special guest, Angela Knight. Hello, Angela.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now for those of you who don't know Angela, she's a professional dating coach. So this is the first time I'm talking to someone who legit knows what they're talking about. Usually, or I mean, granted, I've had like 5 episodes of this show. I'm kind of new to the one-on-one interview thing, but most of what I've been doing is talking to people that I know who are sort of in my YouTube sphere. I'm trying to bounce between female and male guests and sort of talking to them about tips for things like social interaction and communication. And while I say it's like dating and relationship to an extent, I also really try to focus on just general social skills and communication because being sort of a nerdy gamer dude, I had to work pretty hard on being able to speak to people in public situations and not seem like a nervous, neurotic wreck, which I'm still working on. So if you're getting that vibe at all, it's true. But
to be fair, I don't think we're all too far off. We're kind of all the same. I think we just mask it a little bit different, but it definitely comes out in many ways. I think some of us are just better at faking it than others, but it definitely shaking in my boots per usual.
yeah,
And I definitely wouldn't call myself like an expert in relationships or anything. I think that I've taken a certified course for it, and it's more so linked towards like life, just life in general. I think people focus on just relationships, and I think they think it's just intimate relationships that they're failing in, but it just happens to be all the relationships that they kind of fail in, and they just don't see value in it. So I mostly focus on like the communication between men and women, emotionally, verbally, like things like that. But I'm not like a crazy professional thing, but thank you for the
yeah.
grand.
Well, I mean, it is your job though, is as a professional dating coach. Whereas that, like most of the other people, it's like, hey, talk to me a little bit about how you learn to communicate to fellow sort of nerdy
Right.
YouTubers. Whereas like this is kind of your field. This is sort of what I was. Whereas my thing is video games. That's kind of what I do on YouTube here for the most part. I'm only actually expanding into this dating and relationship stuff sort of actually as a result of some of the situations you were involved with like the red pill
Yeah.
community and things like that, and not because of your incidents in it, but because I was noticing a lot of the same things that I think you've been criticizing. And I mean, granted, I might be getting your perspective wrong, but what I was seeing was a lot of guys who were looking to get advice on the basics of being able to talk to a woman or like even just someone they're interested in, because this is guys and girls as well, talking to someone in a way that could demonstrate their personality accurately and not in a way that makes them sound creepy or awkward. And they're looking at guys telling them to start like thinking about how they can get a person with the lowest possible body count who's going to be the perfect traditional woman. And I'm just like, yo guys, like you sort of need to work on step one. Like step
Yeah.
one is just can you talk to another dude
Yeah.
and have that dude like just have a friendly conversation with you? Are you okay with doing small talk with just random people? Is that something that you're decent at, or do you really clam up and end up stuttering and stuff? Because I sort of think that a lot of the people who need actual advice on this stuff might need advice that's more focused on the basics. And at least it seemed when I found your content, actually, that's why I'm like, man, actually I really should talk to this lady, because you seem to focus on a lot of that same stuff. Like, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I really think like you guys, I think I remember you said in one of your videos, it was there are guys who have everything to ask for but nothing to offer, or something to that effect.
I think so. I see a lot of these things as I'm speaking. It just comes to mind, and sometimes I wish I could, quote myself. But it just if it fits as I'm telling a story, as I pull up a video, it happens to be like a symphony that just comes out, and I'm just like, we were together. I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of threw it out there, but it sounds accurate. I feel like I said that.
I thought that was a good thing, because I think that the I don't want to even say that's not really hubris exactly. The almost over over faith in yourself that you would have to be like, yeah, I'm going to go from zero, not talking to anyone, not really interacting with anybody, to I'm going to pull a 10, and she's going to be perfectly submissive to me and everything like that, and this model of a woman that I have in my brain. And I'm just like, guys, like there's lots of great people who aren't that, and some of them might be perfect for you. So if you're trying to say, oh well, I can skip over all this learning to communicate with people stuff. I just need to get my bank account big enough that I can get one of these girls. I'm like, man, this is advice that's going to work for like a fraction of the 1% of the population who are making enough money to use the advice these guys are given. And I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like, look, I mean, most of the dudes who need this kind of help are probably not ever going to become like an Andrew Tate. But I'm like, you might be able to become Mark the Cyborg, though. Like, I mean, I do okay. I have a wife who I love, and I have some
But
puppies.
I think people even look at that and think that, even Andrew Tate shows a side to the world that's completely different to what he has in his personal life. And I think that people don't
Mhm.
realize within what you see beyond the materialistic stuff, there's depth to it that you're never going to be able to relate just by watching a video or hearing someone talk. You have to live, breathe, and eat this to actually understand that there's a quality of depth that you have to develop within a relationship. And listening to the stuff that people market online, it's just to fix your dopamine fix. It's like really that's what they're all doing. And again, like even saying that it's gonna fit a fraction of the world, I think it's just enough to just kind of get you in the door. But even within that, I don't think that it's enough to actually be fulfilled. Like I think these people listen to what they hear online, and it makes sense. It's like saying like water is wet. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, is it? And it starts sort of making sense. But once you start thinking about it, like, wait, isn't this kind of common sense, guys? Like, why do we need someone on a YouTube with screaming at the mic telling you like you need to get your shit together, get
Yeah.
your life together, chase bags, not bitches. Like you don't need someone telling you that. If you wanted that, if you go to the military, they would have told you that. It would have made more sense. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm actually a career army medic. So although I'm planning to leave, like I'm kind of in like I've got my basically a request, I suppose, for a medical release in. I don't know if you know this. The reason I'm Mark the Cyborg is because I lost my right leg, so I have a robot leg. Therefore, I am an actual cyborg when I'm walking around. But right now, I'm still active Canadian military. I'm a medic, but I also one of the reasons I wanted to start this channel because I'm like, hey, if I'm gonna give a shot at full-time YouTubing, maybe I shouldn't only talk about video games. And I figure I'm at the point in my life, having been married. I just had my 2-year anniversary with X-Ray Girl, so we've been married for 2 years now. We were dating for a year before we got engaged, and then we're engaged for 6 months before we got married. So we've been together for a little while now. But
it's
prior to that, from when I was about 23, which is the age that I had to learn how to be a single guy because I was kind of stupid and I dated the same girl from age 17 to 22. And I missed probably a lot of the years that I should have been learning the skills that I had to kind of learn, not really as an adult, but as a young adult, at least, that I probably should have been learning when I was a teenager. So I figured that I'm at the point that I remember a lot of the things that I learned and could maybe pass it on. So I started this channel, and it's kind of one of the things that I'm planning to do is, hey, I'm going to try to leave the military and do this. But what the real question I had for you, kind of rooting around that communication thing, is what got you thinking that the sort of the sphere that you were in wasn't really getting a complete picture? Because I think that seems to be what I noticed you saw and the reason why you've changed your approach. Do you want to
right.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I worked with them directly. I think a lot of people don't know because I don't really talk about what I do. I just do it.
Mhm.
And I mean, there was I think about a year ago, I got offered to move to Miami to be a co-host with a show, and I did. I moved. It was my first time leaving Tampa my entire life, so I was like, okay, this is gonna be a great opportunity. I might have talked it up more than it was to my family to get my foot out of the house. So it was, in a sense, these impressionable young Bambi girls that these guys prey on that they want in that mindset was like that's who I was. And then when I got there and started working with these people directly, I just noticed how shady they were. And to me, it just gave me I got like firsthand treatment of how they treat people. That they treat them like disposables, and they're very snaky, very shady. And to a certain point, I understand there's an element of business that you have to conduct with people, but there still should be a code of conduct, and I don't see that being
Mm.
presented in these spaces with like business or with personal relationships. And it just really blows my mind because I think like as a girl, I mean, we're notorious for being super airheaded or just emotional, whatever it could be. But at the same token, it's like they still want that, they still need that for the entertainment of these shows. But when I'm conducting myself in a more stoic manner, more than a man is, it just really blows my mind that wait, the person that I thought when I watched them online is not what I met in real life. And then once you start seeing them online, you start seeing through the fakeness, the facade,
Mhm.
um, and the inconsistency. And then once you challenge their views, it completely crumbles their foundation. So it's just slowly, one by one, I started realizing, one, never meet your superhero, and then two, not everything online is what you think it is. So I guess coming from like a consumer's point of view, watching content and then turning sort of into a content creator, working directly with people and watching them just be really shady and screw me over in ways that I haven't even spoken about, because if I talk about it, I'm victim blaming or whatever it could be. But if I just stoic about it and I just really suppress everything, I've never understood exactly how a man felt, more ever, and I probably never will. But if this is how society makes you feel, where if you complain you're a bitch, but if you talk about it, you still feel like a bitch, but if you suppress it, it eats at you like you're a bitch. So regardless, you're kind of screwed. In so many ways, I was conflicted. Like, if this is how people feel, in a sense where women are used to verbalizing how they feel, men are used to showing how they feel. I think that's a big difference. And I mean, I asked my fiance, I asked the male members in my life and my family. They were just like, yeah, that's how we generally feel all the time, and we've kind of normalized it, and it fucking sucks. But at least there's sex, and at least there's food, at least there's something to at least make it worth it. And then I started realizing, like, there are truth in what these guys talk about, but then there's a certain element when they turn into, they're playing God with people's lives, people's innocence, and I don't roll with it. I think there's still a moral compass that I like to stand on.
Mm-hmm. And well, the one of the criticisms that I had of them, and I think you might have been sort of brushing up against there, was the almost overemphasis on things rooted in science and evolution and biology. And as much as I think that all those things are real, so I'm not going to say that like no, those things don't matter at all. I think that you seem to approach things with an element of not disregarding emotion entirely, and understanding that even if you're a man, you still have emotions that you do need to deal with, and you do need to make at least an effort to understand the emotions of your partner, and know that you're not going to entirely understand and like be able to 100% one-to-one empathize with a woman's emotions, but you should be aware of them and understand that that's not them doing anything wrong by expressing them. And learning how your specific partner expresses their emotions, I think, is very important. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I that's basically what I'm still trying to figure my wording around explaining that exactly. Like I've mentioned before, I think that men and women are very complementary. At the same token, if you want to take that to the next step, we could definitely learn each other's traits to grow within the society, within your element, within whatever it is that makes you happy. You could either stop there, or you can plateau, you can become complacent, or you can continue growing. And I personally like challenges. My man likes challenges. So I think that we've come from a background where after you get out of survival mode, you have to recognize like what's your goal in life, and is it all for you? Is it to help someone else? Is it to impact someone else? Like, how are you paying for it? And I think it all started with me recognizing, like, my foundation as a woman, I need to make sure I understand how to really express myself, because I recognize as a man how he expressed himself. That's not how I do it. Uh, and once you recognize like how the other person expresses themselves or how they talk and their style of communication, one of us is going to have to take the high road and embrace it, and really I would have to say adapt it, so we create a safe space for each other. I don't think people do that enough, and we pretty much just demonize each other. And then years go by, you have water in your boat, and then we resent each other, and then we just say we grew apart. Like, no, we didn't grow apart. We just didn't give a shit about each other. And the next thing you know, we have a sexless marriage, and everybody hates everybody. And then
Yeah.
bam.
Once you stop asking each other about and caring about each other's problems, it's really hard to feel close to a person. And I think that the relationships I've had, the serious ones at least, that I've noticed were failing, I feel like I started picking up on that way before they actually ended. And it's just like, nah, maybe it'll get better. But there is an element of you do have to make sure that you're taking the time to just talk sometimes, and not talk about anything super serious. Just ask each other about your day, have small talk together. And I think that that's really important, and I think it's something that gets lost in the shuffle of trying to convince people to I don't know, attempt to be an alpha male or something. Or it's just like, oh no, you want to be stoic, keep your emotions bottled up, keep them inside. I'm like, well, maybe with your wife you should talk about your feelings,
Yeah.
because They're
Yeah,
gonna.
but I think they get into these super materialistic relationships, and that's why they still feel like they're still holding up, a shield armor when they're dealing with just someone that they're supposed to be completely vulnerable and intimate with. I think they confuse that with when I say like emotional, vulnerable, with like, well, I should cry to her. I'm like, well, if you never gotten fired a day in your life and you get laid off for no reason when your entire mortgage depends on you being the sole provider, yeah, I guess a tear drop would show me that you're a human. That'd be kind of nice. Just because I need to, I think like I've experienced that, and that woke me up out of my little la la land. Was like, holy shit, the one person that's really strong for the first time is showing fear. I need to not be a brat right now. I need to wake the hell up. I think that in some ways or form, like if you are someone who has like natural dominance and someone who is a respectable person in the household, man or woman, if you do something out of your nature, the person next to you should be aware. It should want to be like, oh wait, let me snap out of this little utopia that you've created and I've created for myself, because for once you're showing emotion that's not usual, and I need to be there for you. I need to be empathetic. And I think that these guys don't have these types of relationships, so when they hear that, they just think of it like, oh, that's so crazy, I would never do such a thing. And that's why, to me, they're never going to reach the pinnacle of fulfillment. They're always going to be able to buy their happiness in increments, but that quick dopamine really goes away because we're so into this instant gratification in this generation. And it just keeps trickling down because you can buy everything. You can buy material things, you can buy company, you can buy followers, views, you can buy all these things to just fill this little bullshit void that comes from within. But that's just too much work to like look from within, so they rather just look for it elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think that the important thing to realize is there's a lot of value to be found in at least making an attempt to understand how the person that you're with feels, even if you don't understand why they feel that way exactly. Just understand that they are going through something, understanding what that something is, and then figuring out a way, which is very difficult and something I'm still learning how to do, how to ask them what you should do in a way that doesn't sound like you're dismissing them or you're aggravated by the fact that they're in a bad mood. So it's like, oh god, what do you want me to do? You don't want to say it like that. You got to try to find a way to get past the emotion and to the action, because when you've got to allow times for when your partner is being emotional, that you can be the stable stoic one. And I don't think it always needs to be the man as the stoic one and the woman as the emotional one. I think though that role should necessarily switch depending on who actually has something that they're going through. I mean, does that make sense, or does that sound silly?
No, of course it makes sense. I think that what you're saying definitely makes sense. I think what people don't realize, and maybe I'm saying it wrong, I think that we're all born with the same set of personality traits, hormones, and maybe not the same levels, but we all have them enough in our body. I think that sometimes people don't realize when I mention like a man is stoic, it doesn't necessarily mean like he has to be like cold or whatever. I think that just because if we recognize that the woman's personality dominates in being emotional because I'm reactive, or I'm not used to XYZ, I need somebody that's going to balance this out, which is the person that's stuck. We can't have two people that are emotional and erratic. But there are some times where I need to be calm because as a woman, I'm used to chaos. Like, I don't know, for example, like road rage. I'm used to people being crazy in Florida, so I don't know where you're at, but I'm okay. I'm super chill, like 90% of the time. Like something's, I'll just a little swerve off. I'm good. My man is really hot headed. At that time, well, at least he used to be really hot-headed. He's been calmer since I've developed being more just like kind of put my hand on his hand, like, it's okay, no big deal, like, let's just keep going. It calms him down immediately. But if I'm in my woman mode and I'm just like, fuck that bitch, XYZ, run this, now you're just gaslighting this whole situation, because now you're just making him feel like, as a man, I can't defend you. But if I'm telling you like, hey, I don't need defending, we should just go, babe, like, not a big deal. It just, there's a time and a place where I've mentioned before, relationships are like sometimes 60-40, 50-50, 70-30. It just flip-flops. And I think depending on the more roles you can adapt from the opposite sex, the better it is, because at least the other person knows that you're empathetic to what they're going through. Mm-hmm. That's basically, maybe I'm saying it wrong, but I'm still
you hit the nail on the head more than you know, because the road rage, I guarantee you, X-Ray Girl is watching this and laughing her ass off, because she's like, oh my god, I'm going to use that next time. Because I'm the kind of person that if someone cuts me off, I'm not going to chase them down or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I will yell at them, because I get very angry when someone does something very inconsiderate, and people just say that's just like your like Canadian blood just firing up, just like
I think like for men in so many ways, like I don't think, when I say this, I think like men work for their spot in life in a sense where I'm not saying women don't, but in specific women, I think you work so hard for your spot in life to earn your respect, and wherever you're at in life, that when you get disrespected, it's just the ultimate slap in the face, and it's immediate to be like, no, I need to like get back my respect. Fuck you. Like I was doing my due diligence. I pay my taxes. I stopped at the red light. You know, like what the hell? And like for women in specifics, and that's just me generalizing. I think for me, I just recognize I'm not like that, but I've recognized like that's cool. I want to be like that. So I'm calmer. And at the same token, I think like women, we tolerate disrespect if we are shown love. It's really weird. When I say disrespect, meaning in many ways, it's like when we get married in Technica, traditionally, we don't have our last names anymore. We have to go wherever our husband's family is at. We kind of don't have an identity. Even the positions and intimate time is quite degrading. We don't mind it if we love the person that we're with. It's really weird to say that, but I don't really think it's necessarily like we expect the world to respect us. It's just the person that we're intimate with. But with men, it's like, no, like respect me. What the fuck? Like I busted my ass to be here. I'm standing. I'm good. I'm doing my job. And I think when I see him, like, let's say driving and someone's being a complete dick, he's like, I've done everything right today. I'm in the car with my girl. I will not be bitch made. Not right now. Please let me get to the destination. So I could definitely see that. And I'm like, let me just tell him like, it's okay. This happens all the time. I'm used to getting cut off. I'm used to people being mean to me. I'm Asian. I'm a girl. I'm driving. What do you expect? So, yeah.
And I know my wife breaks stereotypes. She's actually quite the competent driver. We went to Chrissy Mayr's wedding in New York, which is about 10 hours from us. A couple weeks ago, and so we were trading off about like 2 or 3 hours at a time. And yeah, she has definitely far less road rage than I do, and yeah, she drives really well. And so
yeah, I think we've gotten desensitized like to people just being crazy. Like whenever I see like a child yelling, I'm like, oh, hush up, you're fine. Like little things like that where I'm desensitized to chaos. With him, if he can control it, he has to control it. And I've noticed like this is like a little dark, but I've noticed like when I've said this in a metaphor way where like with women, we don't mind suffering as long as it's with somebody that we love and that they're with us through the suffering journey. I've noticed that with men, if they have to suffer, they rather suffer alone. It's just one of those things where they don't want to project the burden onto anyone else, especially if they love them. And for women, we don't recognize that. So whenever we see a man that's going through something, what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. It's okay. Just tell me. And for the longest time in the beginning of my relationship, I didn't recognize like, hey, like shut the fuck up, Ange. Like just tell him like, hey, I know you're having a bad day. If I'm wrong, like I'm sorry, but like if you're having a bad day, I'll be here. Take your time. Go take your walk. Take whatever you need. Here's food. I'll see you later. Like little things like that, like whatever it is that alleviates their stress. I think like we have to recognize to just support that. But like for me, if I'm going through like a period syndrome or a rage in life, I got my ass cursed up by my boss or something, I need him to sit there and eat ice cream with me. Sit here, eat ice cream and watch trash TV or something. Is it fair? No. But to me, that's how we bond. I think that's how most women like to bond with their husbands or boyfriends. And when he doesn't do that, we just don't feel like we're loved. And that's why men and women are so different as far as how we show love, one through sacrifice and one through suffering together. It's really weird, but at least that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, no, and that's completely it. And a big challenge in a relationship, or not a real challenge is probably not the correct word for it, but a big, I guess, thing that you have to do in a relationship to develop is understanding what that person needs from you in those situations, and maybe not necessarily doing it without them saying a word, but being completely on the ball and knowing that this is not the time to say, oh, actually I've got a thing that I kind of wanted to do to get ahead on some work for tomorrow. It's like, no, not like, hey, if she's like, hey, would you want to just well, we're in Canada, so cannabis is legal. She was like, do you want to just get really high with me and watch some anime? Even if I'm like, yeah, I was planning to play some video games with my friends or stream or something like that. If it's like, okay, is it a stream that I promote? Like if it was the one with you, like I have a guest, someone that's relying on me. But it was just like, no, I'm going to play Final Fantasy 14. I think I'll start the rogue class and see if I can do some damage. And I'll be like, okay, well, I don't need to do that right now. I should go watch anime with my wife. I like doing that anyways. Oh, hey, baby. Embe. You're Viet, right? Vietnamese?
Yes.
Embe is the only word I know, and it's like my baby. Embe.
Wait, is she Viet? Your wife?
Yeah, X-ray girl.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and she worked in a salon too. She did waxing and stuff. I know you were a nail technician, so I was like, oh my god, this is like your
typical. We don't stray too far from our family ancestors. Is what we do. It's just passed down.
Well,
Yeah.
and then she actually went from being like doing waxing, I think primarily is what she did at the salon, to becoming an X-ray technologist, which is why she has the current name that she has. Because I started dating her, and I wanted to be able to talk about her on my stream, but didn't want to say her real name, obviously. So I don't know, the girl who does X-ray. She's X-ray girl, and then she started playing Mario Kart with me and the channel that I used to work for, Geeks and Gamers, would do these Mario Kart streams. I bought her a Nintendo Switch for her birthday, and
Oh,
she joined us on a few of the streams, and then she started taking notes for a gaming podcast that we were doing. And then, do you know the channel Nerdrotic? Gary is a big guy with a beard, talks about nerdy stuff. Not really
I,
beer, but it's like yeah, he needed a producer, so he hired X-Ray Girl, and now she's like full time off with media production stuff and her own channel.
oh,
But yeah,
that's so cool. Love that. That's great.
yeah,
Look
that's
at that, Asians breaking stereotypes. I barely got my foot out of the beauty industry.
yeah. You're
Uh,
on. You two are on a similar arc, I guess. So you just skip the X-ray part, but that's good. There can't be two X-ray girls. There
yeah,
can be.
no, there's only one, and she's doing it. She's rocking it.
But yeah, what were the other? Oh, the other thing is I actually stole one of your topics for one of our
Sure.
episodes a couple days ago, where it was talking about we were talking about shaming and shame tactics.
Mhm.
I watched a stream of yours where you were talking about that, and I don't know that because I was rewatching our episode. I was like, I'm not sure that I really got to the bottom of this, talking about the idea of shaming being things that. Is it that your take is that it works for some people but not others, or moderation versus not doing it too much, or what's your general philosophy on it? Just so I don't.
My, I mean, the old me said like it was completely necessary. We need to push it, push it, push it, push it. But who I am now, I have to say like I don't support it at all. I think shaming is unnecessary. I know a lot of people say, well, how are we supposed to address a problem? And I've noticed that um, not all problems have to be addressed. It's just a matter of leading a new solution. And I think that people tend to follow whatever is new and trending and confident and valued. But like sitting here and belittling people and telling them they aren't shit and that what they're doing is going to be detrimental, I've only noticed that it's just pushed them more of like a rebellion if you've done that over and over and over. And eventually they probably will change, or they might not, and they may be doing it for all the wrong reasons just to prove to you that what they're doing is right. And I think something as far as like people doing the right thing, it takes something from within that you should want to do. And the only reason that's going to happen is if you notice other people are doing something that you're not, and they're doing it better than you, and it's healthier, it's better outcome, better numbers. That's the only way that's going to happen. So I think by platforming people and shitting on them at the same time, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think it's a great tactic. And for anyone that has kids, I don't have kids, but I mean, I take care of other people and younger people in my life, and to me, it's like I've noticed I don't agree with anything they do. And for the longest time, I would just disrespect, I would just call them out on it. I was very blunt. Why are you laughing? Is it bad? Oh,
Sorry, I have a growling puppy. The other dog's showing up, and this one gets territorial.
oh, okay, got it. Um, but yeah, the whole shaming thing to me doesn't really work out because I just kind of make them feel very isolated. So they start creating their own little army of things against me, and they're just doing everything to prove that I'm wrong. And I don't think that that's helping people find out that they're doing something stupid or not beneficial. It's up to me to just recognize it and just just steer away from that and just tell them like, hey, I don't agree with that. I don't think it's healthy. But if that makes you happy, I support you from a distance. But I'm gonna be over here where I'm happier, and this works out for me. And the people may be, a little bit egotistical at the time, but eventually I notice that they do come down from that high. And then when they're down, I think that when people are vulnerable, when they're sad, whatever it is, I don't want to be the person to kick you when you're trying to change or accept that maybe you were wrong on something.
Yeah, and I think that all makes a lot of sense to me. It kind of I sort of thought of something as you were explaining that. It's almost like you're saying that you find inspiration more effective than shaming, like inspire people to do better by because you were saying that people tend to latch on to examples of, oh hey, like that guy's diet plan seems to be really working out for it. Maybe I should do something similar to that. Is that kind of what
Yeah,
you?
it's like that, but also to break it off to a different branch of like I can definitely respect. Like, I have to verbalize all that. Like, hey, like I have friends who are on different political spectrums. I have people that are on different views of life, everything. And I've always been like, listen, if you want to engage in hookup culture, that's for you. No disrespect. I'm not going to sit here and shit on you in specifics. Do I think it's detrimental? I do believe it's detrimental. I don't think it's healthy. But personally, if it makes you happy, then I support you. I just don't support the movement at all. You seem like you're independent to do these things. And if it makes you happy, do it. I'm like, but I'm not going to sit here and shame you specifically. But let's be real. Let's acknowledge there are a bunch of people out there who are just coping with it. I'm like, can we at least acknowledge that? And usually, because I like to sort of sit on the logical side of conversation, I'm not going to be disrespectful and rude. They're most likely going to say, yeah, no, I do agree, because everybody wants to be special. Everybody wants to say that though theirs is different, their move is different. And that's fine. I'll grant you that. I won't shit on you. But I do recognize there's a bunch of people who are just doing it because it's a movement. And if I just sit here and say, no, everything's amazing, everything's great, now I'm just lying. I'm not going to lie, but I'm also not going to tell you that I support it. Let's say as a movement, I support you if you think that's healthy. If you think smoking 26 a day is helping your brain function better, I think that's absolutely crazy. But if it makes you feel better, do it. And I'm going to be over here taking my ginger shots and do what the fuck I need to do to be healthy, because I don't have that luxury. And I think that when you do that, you acknowledge that there's a division, there's priorities, and at the same time, you could have differences and still sit in the same room. You don't have to all sit in an echo chamber. I think that's important to at least point that out, the obvious.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that I brought up to my wife on our show, God, Rocky, the thing that I brought up to my wife on our show when we were talking about it was the role that the person plays in your life and the relationship you have with that person being very important. So I think the airtight example of the person who is always allowed to shame you no matter what is your doctor. Your doctor is always allowed to tell you things that might make you feel shame. And you will not get mad at your doctor for doing that, because they're telling you that for your own good. And it is what you need to hear if your medical doctor has said, hey, you are gaining too much weight. Your whole health future is going to change depending on what you do within the next few months, because you're going to start developing hypertension, like high blood pressure or heart disease or high cholesterol or diabetes. And I think that where people take the shaming equals motivation equals good for person out of a sphere in which it will work is if they're just saying, oh, well, my friend's fat, so I'm going to be like, hey, fat ass, get to the gym. And it really takes I think a skilled hand to know, it's like, is that going to work on this guy, or am I going to totally demoralize him and make him think like, okay, I guess I am just a fat ass, whatever, another bag of Doritos, I guess, then at least this makes me happy.
I think that men are different than women in that sense. Sorry to cut you off, by the way.
No, go ahead. No, absolutely. We want to hear from you. The people in this audience hear from me all the time. Also, I've got growling puppies, so
it's because I have the attention span of a squirrel. So I know, like, if I don't say it, I'll lose my thought, and then, like, when it's my turn to talk, I'm gonna be like, what did I mean to say again?
Go for it before you lose it, then.
No, I've noticed with men, you guys are used to challenges. You're used to someone, saying like, hey, I bet you can't do this. It's almost like the challenge of who's better, who can win the trophy, who could be better at this. It's kind of normal in the men's world, I have to say, to challenge each other, to bully each other, to shame each other, to the degree where sometimes it seems hopeless. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think it depends on who's leading it, because if you don't show any compassion, after a while, it just seems like a never-ending, tunnel. I think for women, because I think generally we're more emotional, words of encouragement works more for women. And I think that when you challenge them, on top of feeling like modern women feel like they're oppressed and they feel like the world is against them and all this stuff, unfortunately, when you feel that way and you're in this scarcity mindset, on top of that, someone shaming you and then telling you aren't shit, the chances of you wanting to do better or do the right thing is going to be absolutely slim to none. That's what I mean when I say that. So.
Yeah, no, and I honestly completely agree with that. I think that is a very sharp point. So yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately it comes down to motivation, and that, because I think unless you're just trying to hurt someone, in which case you're maliciously shaming them specifically to make them feel bad, which you can't really argue as a positive. Be like, that's what that person needed to hear. But it's like, did you say it because you wanted to help them though, or did you say it because you wanted them to feel
true?
So it's like there is that to take. You're not being a hero by going up to a random person at the gym and saying, hey, why don't you do some jumping jacks at home before I have to look at your fat ass in my treadmill, buddy? You're disgusting. It's like, are you going to make that guy work out harder, or are you going to make him never want to come back to the gym again?
Right. Yeah, I think that the point of intention is really important to recognize, and that's why, like, I look back at who I was in the beginning of all this, and I was a heavy shamer. And I think also being Asian, I don't know if X-Ray Girl aligns with this, but it's like in the when you're Asian, your family doesn't understand something, they don't like something, they shame you. Like you shouldn't go to school for art. You should go to school to be a doctor. You shouldn't be hanging out with those groups of friends. This should be your friend. They shame you constantly. They tell you what you shouldn't do. And then they belittle you on top of that. So I think that became super normal in my life to be that way because I recognized it was a pattern. And then I think when I had my experience with like Destiny and like I even had OnlyFans like friends that were customers who became like just viewers that felt like, hey, like why would you shame OnlyFans girls as a whole if you're friends with me? And then I realized like, oh shit, like that's so disrespectful. Like I'm being completely blind and objectively talking about something that I believe in, but I'm categorizing this person that I treat as a human with, empathy and kindness. And yet I'm saying, yeah, you're going to hell if you do this. This is stupid, XYZ. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty trash for me to say that. Like, how are you affecting my life? You're not affecting my life. So little things like that.
Yeah, and I think actually Destiny is a great example for that type of person who's willing to engage with people that maybe don't align with their ideologies and stuff like that. And I really respect them for that. And I
Right.
tried to do the same because the way I figured that I'm in kind of an interesting position ideologically because I don't really talk about politics on this channel ever, so that's not where I'm about to go here. I guess just trying to see where I'm at is I grew up going to an art school, went to film school and got a degree in film and made a movie and was filming bands in Toronto for like most of my 20s, and then decided that wasn't going to make me any stable money. Joined the military for a decade and a little bit longer. I mean, I was in the military before, but I was reserve, so I went full time. And so I've got a lot of friends who are both ultra lefty hippie people from like the artistic scene in Toronto, and then lots of really right-wing conservative friends. And I'm not even talking about any of the people I talk to online. I'm talking about people I know in real life. And the interesting thing about spending good chunks of time with people, I'm talking months and years on end working with them and going through all sorts of hardships. So this is Rocky, he's also a puppy, and Jojo gets jealous of him. But I had to interact with all these people, and maybe being, I guess, sort of more of a lefty myself, especially when entering into a more conservative sphere, there was almost like a period of time where I'm just like, man, I'm going to hate all these people and they're going to hate me. And then you start becoming friends with some of them. And you realize that what I kind of came to is like, look, we vote once every 4 years. And most of the time, I'm not talking to most of the people I talk to about politics. So but can we just be like, yeah, we'll agree to disagree on these things, but maybe share each other's good ideas and challenge each other's bad ideas and have respectful conversations where we're not trying to win. It's just, let's maybe try to understand how you got to a position that I disagree with, maybe,
Yeah, no, I think that's the ultimate. Like for me, I think at this point now, I think when you're, I don't know, entering the world, just entering new spaces, the goal is to be comfortable. You always want to look for comfort. And so you're going to sit with people that only agree with you, people that make you feel better. It's just after a while, to me, it gets kind of pointless and soulless. And to me, I think that my journey through this whole content space, I've impacted a lot of people in my life, like my family, in a positive light. Like they've been pretty impressed with how far I've gotten with it. So with that being said, I realized that only became that way after I started challenging the people that were keeping me in a hamster wheel. And it wasn't even their fault. It's just what they themselves have done to themselves in their life. And I unplugged myself from it. I was like, I don't want part of this. I want to be above this. No offense to anybody, but like if you're happy doing that, do it. But I'm still going to critique the flaws in it, and you have to accept the reality. Am I right? Am I wrong? If you consistently say that men are logical and women are emotional, I challenge you with my logic. Challenge me back with logic, or you can be emotional and insult me. But then now we can really say who's the woman, who's the man now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like the ultimate angle that I've taken, and it's really proven to me who is really a man, who's really a woman, who's really, logical and all this stuff. But I think that they haven't really grasped the idea. So to them, it's like, oh, you're just grifting. And I'm like, well, I'm grifting, but I sleep very well at night. Everyone's very happy with me and my family and my friends, my everything. The growth, it makes me feel better. And I've seen And I'm sure everybody in this space can say I've had good impact, I have good DMs and all that stuff. But I guess to me, it's more so the quality, not the quantity. And for a lot of these people, it's the masses. The masses
Yeah.
are giving me a thumbs up, but the masses is also really lost too, bro. Like, what do you mean? So, yeah.
Well, and often you'll get a little bit farther telling people what they want to hear versus what they need to hear. So, especially in the industry of giving people advice, advice of any kind, not just dating or relationship advice, but any kind of advice, you gotta always kind of be mindful when a person's giving you honest advice that they believe. And I'm not saying that it has to be correct. I'm saying that the person saying it has to believe it themselves, because
Yeah.
I think that that's the difference between being factually correct and being honest. Because I think that you can be honest without being factually correct, because you might
Right.
just have your facts wrong. But
Right.
if you believe it, you're at least being honest. And I think that that's the dividing line, that when you get focused on audience capture, I think is the term they generally use, or it's just, hey, I'm just going to tell this bigger, very lucrative group of viewers what they want to hear, and then they're going to pay me to continue telling them that. And I think there are definitely people in the dating and relationship space who pretty clearly do that. I kind of don't want to start any fights, because, man,
Yeah.
I'm really, really going to get called a beta male, cuck, soy boy by everyone in this space. They're all going to think I'm. But I think what's really funny, though, is when I'd be like, yeah, well, I mean, I'm a career Army medic and I've lost a limb. What have you been through, man? And
I mean, they're really oppressed, you know, in their easygoing AC, high speed Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
you know, podcast mic life. It's been really hard for them. They you know, hoflation has been very real for these people. Like, it's a thing for them.
Yeah, it's yeah, the market is a bubble's gonna burst.
Any guy generally that speaks to me about these topics that agrees in any form or way, everyone would say like, this guy's a beta. Like, that's what irritates me the most, because it's like, where's the logic behind that? I'd like to understand this, because this person is acknowledging the realities of life, that we're all humans and we kind of have all similar personalities, just the priorities and where we lay them out won't specifically like align with each other just yet, but you actually have to cultivate and harvest that type of relationship you want. And when I say that, they think I'm like reading from some spiritual astrology book when I say that or something. I'm like, no, genuinely, you're never going to just fall in love with somebody. You have to actually get there with them. You have to grow with them. And because these people are older than me, they're just like, we've never gotten there ever. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, well, like I said before, my grandma has been driving for 40 years. She still sucks at driving. So it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this shit. If you're not challenging yourself, you're going to be doing the same stupid shit over and over and over and over. So you can tell me that I have really long years doing this. It doesn't matter, buddy. No one's ever checked you, nor have you checked yourself. So
were you ever good at it?
Yeah. You know, and it's so subjective. Like, they're always like, you know, a man has tried everything in this relationship and she still filed for divorce. I'm like, well, who's the one that said he tried everything? He did? Because I thought I did a great job on my resume and I didn't get hired. So who the fuck says I did a good job? Me or the person hiring me? So yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of what's interesting too is, for a space that seems to be very focused on statistics and facts and logic, there's a lot of, well, I've talked to people who told me. And like, I mean, and the difference is here, I'm not totally shitting on that, because I think talking to people and getting real experiences from people you're speaking to does have some value. I just would not frame it as statistically, here's this, and then have no statistics to present, and then say, oh, but any argument based on feelings or intuition or emotion is absolutely wrong. And I'm like, well, no. I think because that's a way too simple way to look at it. Because if I feel that there is a lot of difficulty in modern relationships because of things I've talked to with actual people, there's something we can start a conversation with there. So I might not say, yeah, I can prove it by just showing you raw numbers, I win, game over, that's it. I'm like, no, it's more difficult than that. It's more complicated than that. You have to talk about it. You have to actually get
everything is complex, and they don't want to hear that. That's the thing. Yeah. They want black and white blueprint for a complicated fucking life. And I'm like, okay.
And I think, actually, the other thing I wanted to mention, because you mentioned the thing about women are emotional and men are logical. And speaking of Destiny, the thing he brought up that I always loved was, men are totally unemotional unless anger is an emotion. And I was like, oh, yeah, well,
yeah. Sure. Yeah, and that's why I hate that. I used to think that phrase was like it made so much sense when I was like when I first heard it. But then I thought about like, all right, they claim these guys are not emotional, but they're screaming in mics, their veins are popping out of their foreheads, they're shooting up places, they're beating up women, they're doing all these things. I'm like, is that not emotional? Like, what do you mean? And it's not to say that women don't have logic. I would say that the logic is just not a priority because we're driven by the frustrations that I'm supposed to follow this person that's leading my life. So there's no logic when I have to submit my rights, my entire purpose to this person traditionally, or whatever it could be. Even just in manners where I think that men and women lead different in relationships. But I'm not saying only the guy leads. I just said like generally, if my man didn't lead us where we wouldn't be here. And there's a certain point where I have to grab the baton and continue doing what he couldn't do or he couldn't want to do, vice versa. And I think that people don't see that. So when they hear that women just aren't logical, I'm like, no, we can be when when it's a safe space. If it isn't a safe space, I'm not gonna have any fucking logic. It's not possible. I'm a chaotic person. I'm used to the chaos. I think a lot of women are, and I think that people don't want to accept that. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I think that I've been seeing a lot of things point me towards the concept of balance when it comes to those things. And it was actually, there was a tweet I made I think a couple hours ago. It was today, right? It might have been yesterday. I don't know. Time has no meaning to me sometimes. But I tried to keep my appointments. I did also see in one of your streams that apparently you're super pissed if anyone ever cancels on you last minute. So I was like, I am setting 3 alarms for this one. But no,
Oh,
it's a good thing. And actually, another thing that makes you a lot like X-Ray Girl, because yeah, if you're late for an X-Ray Girl stream that she invited you on,
I just think it's so disrespectful. I've never really had men cancel. I think that again, it's unfortunate, but like if I go anecdotally, like most men, are good on their word. It's a shake, it's a handshake. When they say I'll be there, be square.
mhm.
But with women, unfortunately, I've had 5 girls booked, 5 girls canceled like every single time. And it's just I'm not a priority to them because there's nothing for them to gain from me. Like there's no penis involved. There's no love to be involved. So they're just like, it's convenient. It's like I'm their backup plan. So they always fall through, fail to never show up, and then I sound like an angry person on my stream.
Yeah, my advice for anyone going into streaming or content creation: try to not turn down invitations to go on things if you're free. Because if you're not doing anything else at the time, there might be 3 people in that audience who become your biggest fans, like the viewers who are in every single one of your streams. They become your mods. They might run your chat, and you might have never had those people in your audience at all if you just decided, the stream's not big enough for me.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
care about the people in your audience like I care about you guys. But the thing I was saying about with the concepts of balance, though, was the tweet that I made that I would show here, but it's there's a clip from an anime in it, and I find Japan tends to be really, really angry about copyright claiming. Like if you show even over a second and a half, they'll claim you. But it's this samurai who's a female samurai who's protecting a ninja who's being attacked by a giant. Simple premise, right? And she's trying to focus herself and like basically say like, okay, calm down, suppress your emotions, just act. And then she remembers something that her master said to her, that like you're not the path of reason, that like you're the path of the middle. And she took it as almost an insult at the time, but then she starts thinking about that and like envisioning these waves crashing that eventually just kind of settle. And I'll send you the clip, but it's the lines that she says, something to the effect of, use your passion to give you strength and use logic to keep yourself focused on your goal.
Oh.
Neither emotion nor reason, but both, the middle. And I thought that was really cool, and it sounded like a lot of things that you were actually talking about in your podcast around the time that I saw that episode of Andrew actually plugged the show here. The show is Hell's Paradise. It's quite good.
Oh, nice. Love that.
But yeah, and yeah, I think that I've been seeing more and more things even in other aspects of different conversations where it seems like more people are starting to understand that. Like, do you know who Anna Kasparian is from the Young Turks?
No, I'm
Oh, okay.
sorry.
She's like a big left wing news pundit who just went on a friend of mine's show. Adam friended a CT who did some of my art that you might have seen on my channel. She's their producer, and Sitch and Adam have this show where they're like kind of centrist dudes, and they got this very left-wing, very popular person come on and have probably one of the most reasonable discussions I've seen on the internet in a long time that I wasn't expecting. So I'll often tell people, I was like, guys, watch the Sitch and Anna interview, and the more you dislike Anna, the more impressed you will be by this conversation, because it's sort of her saying, yeah, I've been really partisan and really biased for a really long time because I was viewing everyone who I disagree with as evil, and I still don't agree with them, but I want to just be able to talk to them. And I don't know, I've seen a lot of things that are giving me hope.
Is that who I think? All right, what was her name again?
Anna Kasparian.
Okay, I think I retweeted a video of something because I liked what she said, but I have no idea who she is. The blonde, she's like I think she's like Albanian or something. She's blonde hair, right?
Armenian.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I kind of know of her. I just don't really get into the political stuff.
It's okay. There's a lot of lore there that would take a long time to explain. But the point is, I'm seeing at least a fair amount of people starting to be like, hey, how about we just people that disagree with us and try to find a way to find a middle path at which we can at least meet on and agree on and talk about. And I think that, as much as this will sound really kind of hippy dippy, that same thing exists within all of us, like individually. I think that we have our I mean, if you want to compare it to politics, like super conservative, very logical, very reasonable order, and then our very liberal, creative, emotional chaos. And I think that it's kind of bullshit to act like one of them just doesn't matter. And I think that a lot of us will become better people and will have better relationships if we start realizing that we need to take both of those things into account when we're interacting with other people, especially. So I don't know, I guess that's probably how I would sum up my thoughts on the whole thing. What do you think about that?
Well, I 1,000% agree. I don't think it's going to happen because unfortunately, I think in my mind, at least I think I cracked the code, and probably plenty of other people who probably went down this journey and just realized that when the problem is solved, there's no more money to be made. There's no more things to be entertained with. And essentially, I think keeping people angry, keeping people entertained, keeping the chaos going on is what keeps the world going round. And I think like once you recognize that, there's the elites that just kind of fall off the map and find their own little utopia with their friends and family that they love. And then you have the angry people who are just pointing fingers all day long, and both sides are right, but both sides are also wrong. And I think that that's what keeps, this money, this cash flow consistently being pushed around, because that's unfortunately how this world works. And I think that's why I stopped being so aggressive with my fights, because to me, it's like, I
might have to talk to this person one day.
Excuse me?
I might have to talk to this person again one day, so you don't want to be too aggressive with the fight.
It's that, but also it's almost like fighting for a war that the general doesn't even care about you. And I'm just kind of like, this is not even worth it. Like, I'm not going to be the shogun. I don't need to do all this. Like, I need to calm down. Like, just forever a samurai, and that will recognize, like, you're never really going to be what you think you are, because you never really, that wasn't really the agenda to begin with. You may feel that way, and plenty of people may think that they're going to be the shogun one day, but none of them are. We're just all puppets. And I'm like, and just recognize that you are until you realize you don't want to be, and that you're not going to participate in this. And then you evolve from it, and then you create a life for yourself, and then you recognize like why that format exists, because there are people that want to be victims. There are people who want to be taken advantage of, unfortunately, because it's the easier way of living, so you have someone to blame. And there's people who just want control of their own life and then just choose to do what works for them, and people who just keep fighting everything because it just feels good to fight for other people and things. I'm like, if that's your prerogative, do it, but ultimately you're gonna realize, like, where does your life begin after all this shit ends? So yeah, and
I guess I don't have a good answer for that, but
that's no question. This is a statement.
I'm going to continue just doing my best to have respectful discussions with people, though sometimes I do get heated. Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers made me pop off a few times by having just terrible takes about Nintendo. But it's okay. It's usually not anything very serious. Like I said, I don't really do politics, partially because I'm in the military, so I like real world controversial stuff, generally not what I talk about. Relationships, bit of a gray area. But
Yeah, no, I find them interesting though. Like I think last night I was on the what was it, the Discord after my stream, and one of my good friends, I'm learning to, I think people get a little scared when I raise my voice a little bit. I mean, I guess it's normal. But in these debates, it gets a little heated, and unfortunately, when you're on these streams or whatever, and if you're monotone the whole time, everybody's just kind of like, this is so boring. So
yeah,
I get very engaged with it. And at the same token, I think like being originally from the red pill stuff, they kind of make you feel like you have to be feminine, submissive at all times. But I'm like, I'm not sleeping with the internet. I'm sleeping with my man. So that's when I need to assert that. As of right now, in these spaces, it is a combative space when you're debating people, in my opinion, because it's one of those like, it's you have to get your point across, and like nobody's gonna have the grace to let you speak when they want to talk, and it's one of those aha things where you need to get in where you fit in. And I think we were talking for about almost 2 hours, and then when somebody jumped in and was like, hey, like, is everything okay? I'm like, everything's great. Why? And he was like, I mean, it just feels a little heated in here right now. And I'm like, listen, the rules have been established. I'm like, this is how things work in life, right? You establish the rules. Even in UFC, everything looks crazy and brutal, and in the end, you lose. You still shake hands. I'm like, it's okay to conduct this way as long as you state the rules and the laws. But I think this generation or people now, they want to express themselves, but when anyone else does, they start shying away. They start demonizing you, and it's like, no, we set the rules already. Get with the program, guys. Learn to compartmentalize, and I think
yeah.
it's okay to do that.
Well, and learning to engage with people's ideas without making a judgment on them as an actual person. Like be like, hey, I might disagree with this person's takes on a bunch of this stuff, but I should still at least give them the respect of, hey, they're on the same stream that I'm on. I should talk to them as if they're now. If they, I guess it changes if they start physically attacking, or not physically, verbally attacking you and directly attacking you, because then it's like, okay, well, at this point, you got to make the decision to be like, okay, if we're doing this, I'm just gonna leave. Like, I'm not being cowardly. I just don't want to deal with your bullshit later. Or you fight back, and it's not always the better choice to fight back. I want to be also very clear about that, aspiring content creators. Sometimes you should just leave. But
Yeah.
like especially if it's a topic that's near and dear to your heart, and someone's gets really mean about it after you, it can be really tough to let it go.
It's crazy because that does happen a lot, but I think I'm in a space now where I'm learning how to just take that. Um, and how to say this, like I guess the benefit of being a woman is like I can just own being a bitch. I can own being emotional. Someone's like, you're being a bitch. I'm like, I am. I'm living up to my feminine side, aren't I? I'm just women. We like to be bitchy. I was like, and what about you, my friend? And it's like at that point, if you just allow them to do what they're already doing, they're gonna cancel themselves out. And I think like I used to run away all the time, but now I'm just kind of like, okay, is that, I'm sorry you feel that way. Do you want to continue saying more? And it just keeps gets them going, it gets them going, and I'm like,
Start doing aikido, like just kind of like dodging the attacks.
yes, that's what you saw. I mean, I think it's kind of funny to see that because I'm like, well, who has full
Jojo.
control of their emotions now? And it's
Hey,
getting better
sorry,
for me.
Jojo doesn't like aikido. Yes, I know, Jojo. Steven Seagal does aikido, and you don't like Steven Seagal. We got it.
I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty cute. It's pretty cute.
Yeah.
It's
She
very,
was
very.
that time. I think she was just asleep, and I woke her up, so she was like, what's going on?
Oh, she. My fault. My
Yeah,
fault.
yeah,
She's really
she's a JoJo girl. Although technically she was named after a male character. Rocky's a boy though, and he's a very very relaxed puppy usually. Although we are at about an hour, so we could probably wrap it up soon. But I did want to get one question too, because I think that it was another big topic of one of your streams. I consumed a fair amount of your content in the last week, but it was about the concept of men versus man children. And now, being a 39-year-old man who lives in a place that's probably got about, I'm gonna say there's probably 15 devices that can play a video game in this room. I probably will end up getting a lot of accusations for being a man child. I would generally say that my counter argument would be, okay, yeah, no, like when it comes to the things I do in my recreational time, and I guess technically for work now, but I didn't ever know I was going to be a YouTuber or a content creator if I'm on Rumble. Hello. And I think that ultimately it's kind of what I do recreationally. It's my personality, and yeah, I'm kind of a dork, so there's that. But also, I pay my taxes, I own a house and pay my mortgage. I have like served in the military. I have a job at least now, although I am talking about leaving it. So I guess that's not a great one to keep bringing up. And I've worked emergency medical services. Like I've responded to 911 calls. I've done a lot of things that I think are pretty man like. And I like to at least argue that those are the things that count. Now, knowing that I have a group of lovely people in my audience who I love, by the way, who are probably have very similar interests and hobbies and things like that, and I'm going to guess probably also will not want people thinking of them as a man child. What would you say are the things that, or is there anything, I guess, in as long as you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to go into like a whole big step-by-step thing, but ways that you could avoid becoming perceived as a man-child, because I guess ultimately it's the perception that's the problem. Like well, I mean,
Yeah.
if you actually are one, I guess that is. If you're legitimately one to the point that you're immature to the point that you can't maintain a relationship, yes, that and the problem is you. But if it's just, hey, I play video games, and a girl or even another person might look at me and be like, man-child, then I'd be like, well, I mean, there's more to me than that. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't think we can sit here. Well, it goes back full circle to where I wish I would have been more specific in that video, but I think I was sort of getting into like, my long form content. But to simplify it, I would have to say it's not what you do in your leisure time, it's what you do overall as a human being. I think like you can be a grown man and still act like a child, and a child meaning you don't have control of your life, your responsibilities, your emotions, your purpose, and the people around you. What influences do you have on them? I don't think kids have influences over human beings or adults. I think that if you're a man and you have zero positive influence on people and you're just existing because you're a self-serving bastard, then that's just pretty childish to me, because that's what kids do. And I think at the same time, excuse me?
Not even good kids. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like, again, I don't think kids are bad. I think like people often say, oh, you're being a child. In what manner? Am I loved? Yeah, I'm freaking loved. So yeah, I am being a child. But am I being a spoiled brat when I shouldn't be? That's a different story. And I think like the whole point is, I think like once you get older, you recognize that everybody has a piece of a broken child in them, and we often just kind of suppress that, and we just have to be an adult, because once you turn 18, there's no more compassion for the sides of you that haven't been healed. If you're fortunate to find somebody that cares enough to bring that side and heal it for you, it's the best thing ever. So I think that when I see people enjoy things like video games and anime and movies and drugs and whatever it is, I don't care what you do, as long as what you do when you wake up in the morning and the people around you that are watching you feel secure and happy and confident in you. I don't think what anyone does in their leisure time should affect on how they're perceived. That's why it goes back to me saying, I don't care if you want to be a crack whore. If you do your shit in life and you were a good daughter and you show up to your job and you pay your bills and you do your daily duties.
Most conscientious crack whore ever.
Exactly. I was like, then I don't care what you do. And that's why like my right conservative friends are kind of like, but how can you do both? I'm like, it's a hypothetical. But my friends who are like, selling booty pics on OnlyFans, would I do that? Hell no. But if these chicks are doing everything in life and, joining things like organizations and doing voluntary work while you're over here just buying Louis Vuitton bags because you want to flex on the gram because you're a man, I had to tell you, but she seems like she's more noble than you at this point. So to me, it's just, what do you display in your everyday life and how you're influencing people in a positive way, or it's just self-serving. I hate the self-serving factor, because I think what you do in life really shows how people want to do things for you and with you. And if you have to convince people, you have to pay people, then it really says that you don't have much of an impact on people, and then you're just trying to make it work, and you're trying to say, well, I'm a man, I have a beard, I'm a man, I made a child, little things like that. I'm like, I could buy a nice car and fancy things. Like, well, I bought these things, I'm rich. That doesn't actually mean you're rich. What are you rich in? You're rich in knowledge and purity. Like, what are you rich in, and what are you a man in? So I don't know if that answered the question, but
when you drive the Lamborghini up to the date, what are you then going to say to the woman when you're on the date? Because
right.
you just said, I bought a Lamborghini. It's going to impress her with one sentence. And you gotta then say more things after that. But I think we're more or less on the same page, though, about it being more about your character, like the maturity of your character than the maturity of your interests. And I think that's the big thing that I think actually there was someone in the chat who mentioned it. So Gavin McInnes was on my wife's show and was very, very hostile. Oh, there it is. Boba Fett there. Nerdy Neo, yeah, who has his own gaming podcast that's every other Saturday. Will not be this week. will be next week. So Gavin McInnes called everyone on Friday Night Tights, that's the show my wife produces, called them all incels. Every single guy on that panel is married, and most of them with children. It's like, wait, look, what are you talking about? We all play video games and watch movies and talk about comic book stuff, and we all have families. Like they're grown men. Like Gary's, I think, 52. I want to say. Oh God, I hope I didn't get that wrong. He's gonna be but yeah, like older guys, like with actual families. He's like, yeah, no, we're not like silly incel man children, man. Like we're just older guys who have families, but also these interests. And I mean, I don't know, as a nearly 40-year-old man who has some of those interests, I'm like, well, I don't think it necessarily makes me a bad person, does it?
And that's why I say we shouldn't. That's why I say I don't think the shaming thing is necessary, because what if I go and judge somebody off of that? Now I'm gonna spend an extra 10 minutes apologizing why I was completely incorrect. And I know my personality. I hate apologizing. If I have to, I would do it with dignity. I would do it with my chest up. I will do it. But because I know I don't like doing something, I want to prevent the amount of times I have to do it. Just because I understand, like it's just stupid. Like you don't really know people until you really know them. And passing off a poor judgment really just closes the opportunities that could really offer some.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a great place for us to wrap it up. Angela, why don't you tell us where everyone can find you? It's all linked in the description, but I'll say it anyways. And if you've got any shows coming up that you want to promote, please feel free to take as long as you'd like to do so.
Oh, you're so kind. I'm pretty simple about it. You guys can find me at Angela Knight 2.0 on YouTube, Instagram, Kick, Twitch, still figuring that out. And I always stream Wednesdays and Saturdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's pretty much it.
Cool. Right on. All right, everybody. That was the latest episode, because I'm not sure what number we're even at right now, of Here Comes a New Challenger, where I maybe should change the name, because I don't really fight with people on here. I guess just because I have arcade sticks and stuff, I figured that's something that happens when you press start at the arcade and you're the second person that comes. Anyways, but we're not fighting is my point. And this has been Angela Knight. Thank you very much for watching. You're watching it right now on Mark the Cyborg, but it will be up on Human Cyborg Relations, which is probably where you're watching it now if you're in the future. Take it easy, everybody. And we will be done in about 4